Hey guys, it's me, Kim. How are you? I'm good. Thanks for asking. So obviously we're going to be talking about Terry Crews and the recent onslaught of attacks that he's endured primarily from black men. And I find that to be so gross and shameful, but honestly, not that surprising. So before I get into this, I know I have to offer this caveat, and it's really utterly absurd, but here we go. In 2019, I want to be thorough. I want to be fair and balanced in the real way, not the Fox News way, but I am never going to dedicate any time to telling y'all how much I love men. I think it is so ridiculous and off-putting when I see feminists always have to say, don't get me wrong, I love men. I'm not that kind of feminist. I'm a feminist who loves men. I'm not doing that. So if you think I've got something wrong, fine. Tell me, let me know. If you think I'm mischaracterizing the situation, fine. Tell me. Let me know. All of my work originates from the standpoint of I want everybody to be happy and healthy and whole. I want people to have access to the resources that they need to live and thrive. But this will never be a space where I have to continually assert the fact that I love men. I love men. Like, no, we're not, no. And I am sorry if you have a problem with that. I'm not sorry, actually. Okay, let's go. Terry Crews has been out in the public for quite a few months talking about his Me Too experience and his interactions with violence and domination and toxic masculinity. And he's done it in a way that I am just so freaking impressed by. It's not just the fact that he could shed a different kind of light onto Me Too and insert the voice of this very masculine presenting heterosexual black man, but he does it in such a clear, nuanced way. He does it by critiquing culture. He is just getting it right in ways that I honestly don't expect for men to get it right. So he tells his own story and shares these ideas with so much empathy and so much ideological sophistication that he is able to meld these ideas of sexual assault and violence and link that to the structural racism that he faces as a big black man. I saw him on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, and he was talking about, the feedback that he gets, the pushback, the support, and of course he said that the people who most support him are black women. Now, what a surprise. What a surprise. Black women show up for a man being vulnerable, talking about toxic masculinity. What a surprise. No, actually, it's not surprising at all. It is completely predictable, 100% expected. Look, nobody is above reproach. No ideas are above critique, but the kind of pushback that Terry Crews has gotten has been utterly ridiculous. Y'all are throwing daggers at a man who said that he has been victimized and that the culture that created that victimization needs to change? Are y'all crazy? I've had to take a step back and think, why are these men going so hard? If you're not an abuser, then why would you ever have a problem with Terry Crews publicly calling out abuse? But the reason is, and we have to be very honest about this, is that a lot of men see themselves as closer to abusers than to women. The conversation around Terry Crews has spotlighted how many men are closet abusers, wannabe abusers, abuse apologists, anything to separate themselves from the desires and the movements and the concerns of women. Think about how much you gotta hate femininity to get there. That you are siding with the molesters, the abusers, the assaulters, the rapists over a women's movement. It is completely nonsensical and pathological, because I have not seen these men take up other anti-abuse causes. I have not seen these men offer substantive critique. Maybe Terry Crews is going about it the wrong way. Maybe he's not using the right words. Maybe he's not saying the right stuff. He's not going on the right platforms. But I have not seen substantive critiques and alternatives. All I've seen from these men who can't stand Terry Crews is performances of toxicity. We have seen Terry Crews for months say, look, I'm a big, strong, bald black man, but I'm not a brute. I don't have to be what they think am. I'm not that. And these other men come in and say, no, be a brute. That's who you are. Now, does this really make sense to y'all? What is the logic here? Now, of course, black women are going to be on board because we see this big, strong, strapping black man saying what we've been saying for decades or even hundreds of years, and we say, finally! Somebody gets it, and they're using their platform, their cachet to spread this message. Great! That's awesome! Maybe if a big, strong, strapping black man says it, things will change. Maybe they'll hear him. But it turns out that's not the case. And this thing about what Terry Crews is doing being an attack on masculinity is very concerning. Because I am not a feminist who thinks that all masculinity is bad. I don't. You know, there are certainly women out there who think masculinity across the board needs to be abolished. Now, I'm not on that train because I don't equate masculinity just with male bodies, and that's a whole nother video, right? But it's a little bit more complex. But what are we supposed to think when Terry Crews says you don't have to be violent, you don't have to do masculinity this way, dominance is not the answer? And then men come in and say, don't attack my masculinity. Well, you've just told us that you equate your masculinity with violence. So really, what are we supposed to do with that? Because what we're trying to do is make the world safer. So I completely get when women are like, oh, no, just tear the whole thing down. Just bring it all down. There is no reason why you should have an issue with anything Terry Crews is doing or saying, unless your manhood is predicated on your ability to subdue, to violate, to abuse. And this reminds me of a back and forth I got into on my Instagram like a month or two ago, where I said, you know, my feminism is really about taking down patriarchy, not necessarily taking down men. And then another man came in and said, well, black men don't benefit from patriarchy. And I said, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. One, there are actual material benefits to patriarchy, and that's why we see black men still have more wealth on average than black women, and we see them make more than black women, despite the fact that they do not have more education than black women. So that's one thing, right? There are material benefits to patriarchy. But two, there are psychic benefits to patriarchy, right? A lot of this stuff is psychological. Patriarchy enables delusion. We see these men coming up against Terry Crews, questioning his manhood, questioning his masculinity because he didn't beat that agent upside the head. And I'm like, do y'all think that if Terry Crews really put his mind to it, that you could outperform him in displays of masculinity? For real? So instead of hearing this man's story and being self-reflective and saying, something is wrong here, right? This system is really messed up, you come to the conclusion that he just didn't perform masculinity in the right way and that you could perform it better? Oh, y'all are so delusional. That's the problem. And another thing about that disconnection from reality, those delusions, are this is a switch that can be flipped. Because these men who are telling Terry Crews that he should have just become the Incredible Hulk and torn everything down and hit this man upside the head are not acting out in violence every time that they're mistreated. Everyone is not acting out with violence in every uncomfortable or inappropriate or potentially violent situation in their own lives. It does not happen. People know who to be violent with. Let me ask you, when you have a police encounter, and that police officer is acting crazy with you, you know, police say all sorts of crazy stuff to people and do all sorts of crazy stuff. Are you responding with violence? You don't, you wouldn't. And this goes back to that viral clip of Nikki Giovanni with James Baldwin, and she said, treat me like you would treat that white man. Because the people who do the most violence to you are not the people on the receiving end of your violence. We know this. Overwhelmingly, people get violent with people with the same amount of power that they have or people with less power than they have. So while you're out here talking tough to Terry Crews, what's going on in your life? Show us the receipts. We know for a fact that black men would be much safer in their lives if they disinvested from patriarchy, for a fact. But that's not gonna happen because those benefits as sparse as they are too addictive. And so we see that white women are not the only people who like to act against their own interests. We see white men out here terrorizing all of us because they're propped up by white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. But black men still want to hold on to those little scraps that they get, those little remnants, the cast-offs that they get, because they want to do the same thing, consequences be damned. While men like Terry Crews and so many black women are out here saying, look, we want a culture change because we want you to be safer too. We don't want you to be violated and raped and abused and molested and killed. But at some point, we realized, oh wait, we want that for you more than you want it for yourself. So what do you do with that? Black women are consistently the people who see the full picture. And that gets tiring. It is depressing. And I get why people who say, oh, I'm just not doing that no more. I'm out. I understand that. For some people, that's not an option. You know, I get that too. That's why I am not an I love men feminist. That's why I don't use the phrase our men. I don't have any men. An entire race of men does not belong to me. I wish y'all luck. I want every single person to be free. Everybody. But that's just not a project that I can take on. And there are quite a few situations where the interests of our men do not align with my interests. So I'll have to navigate that accordingly. That's just where we are, and this Terry Crews situation highlights that perfectly. Well, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you. The bonus video up on Patreon right now is me talking about keeping that same energy. Is our feminism, our values, our morals just for people we like? Is it just for people who are like us, or are we applying those same principles to everybody? Do we want everybody to get free? Well, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you guys so much for watching. The bonus video up on Patreon right now is about keeping that same energy. You know, I'm a feminist, and I have to ask myself all the time, is my feminism just for people like me? Is it just for people I like? It's really about checking yourself when you're being a hypocrite, and that is the hardest thing. The hardest thing. Even if you've read all the books. Even if you know intellectually what is right and what is wrong. So anyways, that's what I talked about over there. Obviously, it's patrons only. Go over there to check that out. Send me an email. Leave a comment. Sign up for the email newsletter. Buy some merch. I appreciate you guys. See you next time.